It's time for the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. The Checkered Flag is presented by Danny's Auto Supply, Oskaloosa Quality Car Wash, Sigourney Body Shop, Vital Ministries, RJ Performance, Motor Inn Auto Group of Knoxville, Mahaska, Vanderbeek Trucking Accessories, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, Schroeder Towing and Alignment, and Vanderlinden Detailing. It's time for the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Emery Slonger with you live here at the Mahaska Zone Network Studios, rather than No Coast Network Studios here in Oskaloosa on the north side. And we have a fantastic Checkered Flag show for you once again here tonight. You are also watching us live on KBOEradio.com as we kickstart once again another fantastic week of the Checkered Flag show. We have some highlights from a couple of races that occurred over the past week. Southern Iowa Speedway races were rained out last Wednesday. Not looking super great for them this week, but we will talk about it just a little bit as the show moves forward. On Saturday last week, we were able to get Eddyville Raceway and Knoxville Raceway with some great action. We'll show you some of the highlights and give you some of the results on that as well. Also have three fantastic guests that are going to be joining us tonight, including, once again, we're going to have Gerald Kramer from Eddyville Raceway here to talk a little bit about bracket racing and the first week that we had a chance to be a part of the Eddyville Raceway races and talk a little bit about what's happening here in the next few weeks over at Eddyville. Also have Bill McCroskey. He is a correspondent who's going to be helping us out from Knoxville Raceway, and also Kendra Jacobs is going to be here, and she's going to be talking about the promotional stuff that is going to be happening at Knoxville Raceway throughout the next couple of weeks. So without further ado, the first track that we will highlight is our Knoxville Raceway coverage. We had a fantastic week of coverage over at Knoxville. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened over at the sprint car capital of the world.
Early season action at the Knoxville Raceway led to the three classes having their features. There were two features at the 305 class, and the winners were Kevin Hedrick and Ryan Levitt, and they started on the pole of that class's 15-lap main event by virtue of an 8 invert. It put the high point man Eric Bridger outside of the fourth row. Hedrick would then take the lead early over Levitt and Matt Stevenson. Chris Walraven was on the move. He came from row 3, utilizing the high side to pick off fourth by lap 7. A pass of Stevenson for third was negated, however, when Frank Rogers spun 9 laps into the race. As the cars restarted, Hedrick led Levitt, Stevenson, Walraven, and Matthew Stelzer to the green flag. Walraven moved up to second by passing Stevenson and Levitt on the restart, but Levitt was able to get back underneath him on lap number 12. A caution would come out for Brad Comagese, and it set up a green-white checkered finish. Hedrick would hold on to his lead for his second win of the season. Walraven would retake second at the line. Corey Counts made up a last lap pass for third, which was just ahead of Levitt and Tyler Glass. Stevenson, Stelzer, Bridger, Brandon Worthington, and a hard-charging Mike Mayberry rounded out the top 10. The 360s were also there, and they had a very interesting feature. Chaos ensued when the green flag fell on the 18-lap feature. Before a lap could be completed, Chris Morgan, Josh Riggins, and Devin Klein all went upside down in a chain reaction crash. James Brody was also involved, as was Tom Lenz, who was the only one that was able to make the restart. A second try to start the race would result in a non-stop event, as Matt Covington grabbed the lead on lap 1 using the bottom of the racetrack, but fellow row 1 starter Calvin Landis was up to the challenge. The pair would trade the lead 4 times before Landis would take command on lap 5, which would be positioned ahead of Covington, Ryan Giles, and Carson McCarl. Giles was utilizing the bottom of the track, and when Covington went to the cushion to try to catch the leader, he would shoot under him for second on lap number 12. 5 laps later, he would repeat the move in turn 2 to cruise by Landis and take the lead, coming to the white flag for the final lap of the race. Giles would hold on for his third career win at Knoxville, ahead of Landis, Carson McCarl, Covington, and Cap Henry. Clint Garner, Matt Morrow, Chris Martin, Jamie Ball, and Sawyer Phillips completed the top 10. Finally, of course, the 410s had their feature to wrap up the night. Everyone was on the edge of their seats for the 20-lap feature, as front row starters Ian Madsen and Austin McCarl joined Brian Brown in turn 2 for a battle for the lead. When the things got settled in, Madsen had the advantage over McCarl and Brown, but Brown would pass Austin on lap 2 and begin his pursuit of the leader. Great action ensued and back in the pack, while up front Madsen maintained his advantage. Things were getting interesting at the halfway point in lap traffic as Brown closed in on Madsen, but with 12 laps in the books, a smoking Davey Heskin would stop in turn 4, which brought out a yellow flag. Madsen would lead Brown, McCarl, Kerry Madsen, and Brooke Tatnell back to the green. Brown had momentum coming into the cone and executed a slider that narrowly missed the leader in turn 2. From there, he would pull away to victory, riding along the outside, or riding the rim as they call it. Ian Madsen was second ahead of a steady Austin McCarl. Kerry Madsen was fourth ahead of hard-charging Linton Jeffrey. Tatnell, Josh Schneiderman, Craig Delansky, Terry McCarl, and Wayne Johnson rounded out the top 10. Kerry Madsen posted his second quick time of the year, while R.J. Johnson Brown and Wayne Johnson were heat race winners. Action will continue this weekend at the Knoxville Raceway, the sprint car capital of the world. It's McKay Insurance Agency nationwide night, and of course the 305s, 360s, and 410s will once again all be in action. All the action begins with hot laps at 6:45 p.m. You can check out more information of Knoxville Raceway by going to knoxvilleRaceway.com.
As you can see, plenty of fantastic action at Knoxville Raceway. We'll have recaps every single week of what's happening over at Knoxville Raceway, so be sure to check it out right here on the Checkered Flag each and every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We have plenty of other stuff to talk about. Even though we were rained out of the Southern Iowa Speedway last week, the Eddyville Raceway had a full day of drag racing. We'll have Gerald Kramer, the track director, here in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and take you through while you take a look at some of our highlights. Even though they're not fully organized, let's go ahead and talk about some of the finals that we had in each of the classes. In the no bar bike class, it was Patrick Kerr of Altoona who got first place, with the runner-up being Marysville, Kansas's David Ellenbeeker. In the junior advance, the winner was Tasha Kirk. She's out of Panora, Iowa, with 80.29 miles per hour. The runner-up, Cam Barta of Linville. The junior advanced consolation round, it was the winner, Paige Teal of Quincy, Illinois. She went 81.57 miles per hour, with the runner-up, Shakira Barta of Linville, Iowa. She was 81.45 miles per hour. On the modified division, it was Stan Livingston out of Des Moines who was first place, followed by Stephen Geiger out of Amana, Iowa. And Livingston went over 126 miles per hour, a fantastic time for him in the modified. In the street ET division, it was Ryan Schilling out of Cedar Falls who was the winner at over 88 miles per hour, the runner-up being Ross Wybenson of Riebeck, Iowa. In the 560 index division, it was Dave Easter out of Des Moines. He ran over 117.83 miles an hour, with Patrick Kerr finishing in second in that division. Again, he's out of Altoona. In the top ET division, it was J.D. Brown out of Centralia, Missouri. He was the winner, going over 140 miles per hour. Gene Crow, also out of Centralia, Missouri, finished in second in the division. Super ET, it was Dustin DeHaan out of Monroe. He finished in first place with 99.03 miles an hour. The runner-up was Jaron Christensen of Vinton, Iowa. In the teen championship racing division, Shai Barta got her revenge. She was the winner of that division. She's out of Linville, as mentioned, 55.36 miles an hour, with the runner-up Brooke Barta out of Sully at just under 60 miles per hour. In the 600 index, it was Bruce Van Sant out of Pella who finished first. The runner-up, Chase Van Zandt, also out of Pella. And then the juniors. The junior novice, it was Trey Radcliffe out of Panora who was in first place at over 52 miles per hour. The runner-up, Cecilia Sleifka out of Roland, Iowa. The junior novice consolation, it was Max Laffoon out of Des Moines. He was in first place at over 44 miles per hour. The runner-up, Emma Easter out of Des Moines as well. And then in the junior advanced runoff, it was Paige Teal, again getting the first place finish. She's out of Quincy, Illinois at over 80 miles an hour, with Tasha Kirk finishing in second. She is out of Panora. So those are the finishes of the top two in each class that occurred over at Eddyville on Saturday. And each and every week here on the Checkered Flag, we are going to have full recaps of everything that happens in the points race and give you updated standings as we get farther on throughout the season. That will do it for our highlights portion of the show here on the Checkered Flag. We have plenty of guests that are lined up. Ron Collins from the Keokuk County Expo Figure Eights is also going to be here, but we're going to start everything with Gerald Kramer once again from the Eddyville Raceway Park, and we'll talk drag racing and explain a little bit about how it all works once again for beginners like myself. That's coming up right after this. You are watching and listening to the Checkered Flag right here on the No Coast Network.
Ottumwa's only locally owned auto parts store, Danny's Auto Supply, not only offers great prices on the quality parts and supplies you need for your vehicle, they also now offer complete car care. From brakes, oil changes to a major overhaul, Danny's Auto Supply has you covered from A to Z with parts and now a full-time automotive technician on staff. Danny's Auto Supply is located at 827 East Main in Ottumwa. See them for all your auto parts and vehicle needs. That's Danny's Auto Supply, Ottumwa's only locally owned auto parts store.
Race fans, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum is proud to announce our Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell exhibit in our museum this season from June 1st through October 1st. Stop in and view 6 of the sprint cars that Sammy's driven during his illustrious sprint car career, and our exclusive Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell t-shirts and posters to match Sammy's race cars on display will be available inside our museum store. That's the Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell exhibit beginning June 1st and running through October 1st. Only at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville.
Welcome back in. We are live on the Checkered Flag here on the No Coast Network. We appreciate you for joining us. My first guest of a jam-packed evening here on the Checkered Flag. Once again, Gerald Kramer, track director over at Eddyville Raceway Park. Thanks so much for joining us again.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Okay, first things first. We'll talk to the racing in a second. You guys had a fantastic fundraiser on Saturday for Make-A-Wish, and you ended up getting an awful lot of money for Make-A-Wish. Take us through the idea for the fundraiser and exactly how much you guys were able to pull out of it.
It was one of my racers from eastern Iowa that approached me this winter about doing it. He's a motorcycle guy, and we threw ideas around, and we decided on Make-A-Wish, and we did a special test and tune session that people bought ticket or entries for at $50 a piece, and we gave half of our admission to the thing, and we did a raffle and a t-shirt sales, and we raised $6,800 in one day. So pretty good day for Make-A-Wish. And for those you don't know, this is the funny car racer Tommy Johnson from Ottumwa originally. He lives in Indianapolis now, and his dad was there. And this car is not sponsored by Make-A-Wish. It promotes Make-A-Wish. They have a lady that funds the car fully and all the money. So no Make-A-Wish money goes to the car, but this car promotes Make-A-Wish, and it's a fantastic charity.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Tommy Johnson Jr., I'm an Ottumwa native myself, and he's a legend in Ottumwa, but the legends can be born on any given day over at Eddyville Raceway Park. We looked at these, finishes. A lot of classes were in action. It was a busy day. We had our crew there for a long time, capturing.
It was a long day.
Capturing all the video that we were able to take a look at there. So from an expert's point of view, how did a beautiful weekend to race? Take me through exactly how it went and what maybe surprised you on a full weekend of racing.
Well, the weather was fantastic. There's no doubt about it, and that always helps on everything you do on racetracks, of course. We started early. Normally we start time trials at 3 o'clock. We started at 10 o'clock in the morning because of the charity deal. And we had 125 entries plus another 74 test and tune, so we was right at 199 cars on the grounds. So very good day, long day. We had a lot of classes. We had our normal points classes plus a couple other motorcycle classes and a few other things. So it was a busy day. Yeah,
it sounds very busy. I look at this, I mean, I don't want anybody to get bored of talking about all the classes, but as a novice myself, you see the winner, and then the miles per hour, and then dial, RT, and ET. Now, I can figure out what those mean, but as an expert, can you explain exactly what those mean, especially the dial part of it?
The dial in, this is most of what we do, not everything, but is dial in bracket racing. And this came about in the early 70s, and it was a way to make everybody competitive. It become a cost factor. The heads-up racing is all great, but it's very expensive, and it became a tough thing to keep it going. So what you do is your time trials, you have your various classes, and there's restrictions and limitations on what they do, and so you determine from your time trials what you think your car will run, and then you dial that number, and that's how you're handicapped against your opponent. It's kind of like bowling or golf. When you're in league, you base it on it's handicapped. So it's a similar type thing, and it makes very tight competition. The races are determined by hundredths and sometimes thousandths or even 10,000ths of a second. So
Yeah, we're taking a look at some of the bracket racing that we have here. So when it seems when you watch it, it's a little bit easier because you see the cars finish at about the same time, even though they start at different times. It's based around, you know, the times they typically run. So you'll see a winner with a lower mile per hour than the person who finished in second, which doesn't make a lot of sense to people. But when you talk about having a handicap, if it puts everybody on an even playing field, and it maximizes your performance with your reaction and your car's speed for that particular run. So I would imagine that's pretty popular. Is that the only form of bracket racing that you guys have at Eddyville Racing Park?
Well, there's multiple classes, but and it's based on your elapsed time is the more important than mile per hour. Mile per hour is just a number, and the quicker your elapsed time is, typically you're faster your mile per hour. I mean, we had junior dragsters, you had some of them on there earlier, and these are kids starting as young as 7 years old. And you know, they're limited to what they can run. They can only run 11.9 seconds in the 8th mile. We had one car there this weekend that went 4 flat, 4.00, and at 180 miles an hour in the 8th mile. So that's the difference you have. And there's different, so many different classes. It gets a little complicated at times, but it keeps the competition very equal, and it becomes a driver's race, very much a driver's race.
And that reaction, you raced.
Oh yeah.
So what exercises can one do to try to improve that reaction time, because it becomes so important when the cars are put on a level playing field?
It's practice, you know, and you can practice obviously at the track to a limited degree. We have Friday night test and tunes, but a lot of guys have what they call practice trees at home, which is just like the Christmas tree we have here, but you can practice at home. You can have it hooked up to your car, or you can just do it with your, you know, just reacting to the green light. You got to remember, you're staging the car in a photo cell, and you know, staging the car is critical. And the reaction times that wins and loses a lot of races, and that and figuring out how to dial your car correctly and knowing what it's going to run.
Yeah, and when you look at how different some of the dials are from the elapsed time, so many of them are so close to being exactly correct. So that takes a lot, knowing the vehicle. Is there any class in particular that you thought the action was really good in Eddyville on Saturday?
Well, our top ET class, which is our fastest class, also has the closest competition. I mean, the numbers are unbelievable. You see run after run after run where the cars are exactly on their dial in to within thousandths or 10,000ths of a second consistently, and that's true every week. But we had good numbers in that class. We had good numbers in everything last week. We'll have more in 2 weeks, and Memorial Day weekend, and we have a bigger race yet, and we'll have more cars. But yeah, it's just very tight competition, very, very close.
Well, every Saturday, every Friday and Saturday, some Sundays throughout the season. You guys have plenty of fantastic events. We talked about a few of them last week. What do you have coming up here in the next few weeks to try to, not only for the spectators, but for people who are looking to try to participate? Right.
This weekend, we're only open on Friday night only, and this is a little unique deal. We have a test and tune, which you always have from 6:30 to 9:30, and then we have what we call Midnight Madness. And this is an event, it's primarily kid-driven. It's street cars, street motorcycles, heads up. It's more of a street race type setting, and we run that from 10 o'clock at night till 1 in the morning. And that's a different thing. And then the following weekend, we have our first big 2-day weekend of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Memorial Day weekend.
All right, so the next couple of weeks, big over there. The 10 to 1 is that's awesome. Watching the cars take off during the nighttime. What's the typical turnout for Midnight Madness?
On the Midnight Madness, we'll usually on the first one, if the weather's good, I would anticipate 150 cars.
All right, so it's going to be just as busy as a normal Saturday over at Eddyville. So be sure to come and check that out. Should be fantastic. We'll be talking with you throughout the season as usual, as we mentioned. Thanks so much for helping us out, get things going. And we'll, of course, have our results every week from what happens over at the Eddyville Raceway Park. Again, Joe Kramer, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we will take a break. When we come back, we're going to flip the script over to Knoxville for a little bit. And our correspondent, Bill McCroskey, he's going to be in the hot seat when we return right after this. It is the Checkered Flag right here on the No Coast Network.
Sigourney Body Shop is the intelligent choice. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that great service and reasonable prices are the reason Sigourney Body Shop is the #1 body shop in the Sigourney area. They do auto and truck collision repairs, glass replacement, body and paint work, free at-home estimates, are complete service specialists, and they offer pickup and delivery and a loaner car. Sigourney Body Shop at 210 Clark Street in Sigourney, or call 641-622-2022.
This is Mike Serig with Vital Ministries, and we are looking forward to this new race season right here in Oskaloosa. We have many options for you race fans to get plugged in on a weekly basis throughout the season. We have a radio broadcast every Sunday morning at 8:30 on KBOE 104.9 FM, and we also send out daily inspirations for both men and women on our vitalministries.org webpage 6 days a week. So don't just sit there and let the summer speed by. Come join us throughout the race season.
Welcome back in. We are live here on the Checkered Flag at the No Coast Network Studios north of Oskaloosa. As usual, plenty of racing action to talk about. We talked about the results from a full week of Knoxville racing, and our correspondent, Bill McCroskey, he is live in the studio. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
You bet, Emery. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's first of all talk about you and your experience in racing. When we want to talk to people who know racing, because I am learning, we are learning as a crew here, and you're the guy we've talked to help us get going at Knoxville. What is your experience within the local racing scene?
Well, I started going to Knoxville when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and I'm no spring chicken, so that's well over a half century ago. And my friends, my friends' parents worked at the Knoxville, and I had no way to get there, so I rode with them. And the Johnson family, which the Knoxville regulars that have been around for years, they'll remember Boge and Anita Johnson. And Craig Johnson just retired this year from working at the racetrack, and his brother Mort is still in Prairie City, and he gets down quite a bit to get to watch races. But again, like I said, I've been going there for over half a century, and I've done a little bit of everything. I've owned cars, I've raced cars, sponsored nights at Knoxville, and it's as far as dirt track racing goes, it's just my favorite. You know, everybody's got a favorite. Stock cars for one guy, go-karts for another. But I like sprint cars, and it doesn't really matter if they're 305s, 360s, or the 410s. My preference is the 410s because they're the fastest.
All right, so now that you know that this guy loves racing, especially at Knoxville Raceway, you helped our crew out getting everything set up to make sure we could film properly over at Knoxville Raceway. You have very good insight on what happens. Knoxville has a lot of attention on it, even during the regular weeks, because people know it's the sprint car capital of the world, and they have great competition there. What did you see this past Saturday in terms of the competition level that we saw? We saw a couple of interesting crashes or wrecks, but some very gutsy passing as well, especially late in races.
Yeah, well, we'll start at the top and work our way down. The 410 feature pays $4,000 to win, and that's not peanuts. And Brian Brown made a gutsy move, and on the restart, they had a late race restart there. I think Davey Heskin blew an engine and couldn't get off the track, so they had to bunch up the field and have a restart. And Brian pulled what we call a slider on Ian Madsen, and it worked. Sometimes they dive back under them and they get them back, but it was just an exciting 410 feature. It was a good race. I'd been to Jackson, Minnesota the night before, and Jackson laid rubber, what we call laid rubber, and the racing was good up till the last 12 laps, and then it's like they're racing on Coke syrup. And Knoxville was good all night, and that's kind of a credit to the Duncan crew there, Chris Duncan and his boys. I'm out there early on Saturday morning, and those guys have been working Friday night, all night Friday night, all day Saturday. And when you prep a dirt track with a crew of 5 or 6 people and the right kind of equipment, you can pretty well race on it. They had 33 360s, I'm going to say 24, 25 305s, and 22 410s. So you're talking 70 cars running around a racetrack with a high sun, wind, and it didn't lay rubber. So that's just a credit to the entire Knoxville operation.
That's one thing in racing. I don't think people, especially at these smaller tracks, realize the effort it takes to make sure that racing occurs and good racing occurs throughout the evening. So we definitely saw some great racing there. Great moves we talked about, but there are some really important names of people who race. A lot of famous, dirt track racers have made their way through Knoxville one time or another. One that was interesting a couple of years ago, around this time actually, McKenna Hassey got a win at the 305 feature, and she actually, I believe, has moved up into the 360 class.
Yep.
Take me through what the difference would be in, let's say you're a successful 305 driver, but you move into those more powerful cars in the 360s. What kind of transition is she looking at this year?
She's probably racing against guys that have been racing, some guys that are been racing longer than she's been alive. I'm not sure what her age is, but I'm going to say she's 20.
About.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, they don't get insulted if you're wrong a year or two either way. But I can assure you some of the 97, yeah, there's guys in that 360 class that have been racing since before 1997. And at that level, experience. I mean, this is her first year in a 360. It's going to take probably several years to really, get up there and challenge on a weekly type basis. Only because, like I say, she's young, and there's a lot of experience that goes into this deal. In Gerald Kramer's case, you can practice at home to work on the Christmas tree, as Gerald said, but there's really no practicing for Knoxville until you bounced your head, off the head restraint on your seat, and there's crazy things going on. That just takes experience.
Well, and when you talk about the 360s, you just mentioned how many cars there are.
Yeah, there was 33 cars there, and the NC. I'm not even sure it's the 360 Group National Tour. They had an event in I think Lakeside, Kansas, on Thursday night, but they did not have a Friday or Saturday show. So some of those guys came up. Our local guys ran at least 1 and 2, so we didn't have anything to hang our heads about there, because Ryan Giles won the feature, and I believe it was, well, actually the top 3 were Knoxville guys. Then Carson McCarl was 3rd, and I can't think of who ran 2nd, but he's a Knoxville kid. So, but right there you've got, again, guys that have been doing the 360 thing for a long time, but 33 cars, and they only start 20, I think. So 13 guys didn't even make the show.
Yeah,
in that class.
Yeah, they'll split those features up, which makes the heat races so important, where, we watch Southern Iowa Speedway. They have, sure, 90 cars will show up, but you have 5 or 6 classes to divvy that they're all participating in. Everybody typically can get into that feature at the end of the show. So the one thing that I find interesting about Knoxville is points races, or every single week you're trying to gather points. You want a track championship, but every year, I've only been there one time during that magical time of the year where the entire dirt track country, the sprint car country, the world is got its eyeballs on what is happening in Knoxville Raceway for a solid week. What is the difference for somebody who is trying to understand the difference of racing level when we're talking about a random early season Saturday night, which we saw this past weekend, versus when the best of the best are all in Knoxville for a solid week running in the Nationals?
Well, you had several World of Outlaw winners at the Saturday night Knoxville show. You had a Knoxville Nationals 2 or 3-time winner, and Danny Lasowski. So weekly, the talent level is just as high with the local guys as when the Outlaws come in. Donnie Schatz kind of got his start at Knoxville, and then went, what you'd call the big time or the traveling circuit. But quite frankly, I mean, Brian Brown has ran 2nd to Schatz 2 or 3 times. So our local guys, weekly guys, whatever you want to call them, really aren't anything. They're not even a half a notch below what I call, the outlaws. But you are right. Everybody that's anybody, you got people from all over the world. I think they had people from 16 countries last year in August for the Nationals or something like that. So you are right. I mean, that's pretty huge to have 16 countries. Canada, I think there was somebody here from every state, not necessarily a racer, but fans from every state, 16 countries in Canada. So that tells you how big the Nationals are.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about all the promotional things that are happening later on in the show. But one more thing for you before we get you out of here, Bill. When people try to understand the history, every city tries to claim something.
Right.
For instance, Ottumwa is the video game capital of the world. Knoxville calls itself the sprint car capital of the world. There's a museum there. There's a Hall of Fame. Obviously, Nationals is in Knoxville, but for those who might be skeptical of Knoxville being called the sprint car capital of the world, for somebody that's been around the track for as long as you have, what makes Knoxville so special in dirt track racing and especially in sprint car racing?
Well, probably the biggest thing is the facilities. The Knoxville Raceway and the Hall of Fame are the tallest buildings in town. The Hall of Fame and museum are not some warehouse that's been converted. It was built as a museum from the ground up. They're getting ready to put a huge addition on the Hall of Fame. I mean, most towns twice the size of Knoxville would be happy to have a business building that looks like the Hall of Fame. Then across, as you sit at the Hall of Fame, you look across there and see 18,000 seats, beautiful seats with more suites up above. I mean, it's probably as nice as some of the NASCAR tracks were 10 or 12 years ago, as far as suites go and just the overall facilities. So, when they are head and shoulders above every other dirt track in the world, not the country. So what else can you say? I mean, the facilities are just absolutely second to none. And the town, the town gets behind it. So it's just got an atmosphere that you can't duplicate. You can't buy the atmosphere. It's there. Parades. It's nine or 10 straight days of racing, with the 360 Nationals moving into the 410 Nationals. And the second place finisher in the 360 was Calvin Landis. I better say that before Landis runs over me. And a shout out to Kevin Hetrick in the 305 class. He did a great job on a late race restart too to hold his position and actually drive away and win the 305 feature quite easily.
Bill, throughout the season, you're going to be coming on this show. We'll be talking about the results of Knoxville Raceway, and now we know you have great history with Knoxville, a good understanding of what happens. Excited to see kind of how the points start racking up as we move through the season.
Yeah.
And you'll be in plenty of times throughout the year to talk about it.
Yeah, the points in the 410 pay $20,000.
So you want to have a good season.
You want to win the point. I mean, there's a lot of guys that cut their mother's heart out for $20,000, and I mean, every point's important. I mean, I've seen this thing over the years decided by the last night's feature finish. So, in fact, that involved a local person in Jeff Matrician. He wasn't able to race last night. And McCarl won, and Jeff was leading going in, and so it's a huge deal. But $20,000, and it isn't like it's $20,000 for first and $2,000 for second, and thank you for third. I mean, the payoff in all three classes for the points is phenomenal, and that's why the guys come here every week. That's why we had 73 cars or whatever Saturday night.
All right, and it's going to be fantastic to follow. Bill, once again, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Emery. Thank you.
And we'll be talking to you again very soon about all the points happenings over at Knoxville Raceway.
Right, and a shout out to my cameraman, Kyler Myers.
Yeah, absolutely, the man.
He's the man.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Ron Collins. We're going to switch over on figure eight stuff. That's going to be coming up right after this. It's the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network.
Hi, I'm fake Sarah McLaughlin. When was the last time you really gave your car some love? Has your car been the victim of neglect over the winter? Does it have old French fries in places that no one should ever have old French fries? Then wait no further. Pick up the phone and give Jeff at Vanderlinden Detailing a call right now. Give your vehicle the love it deserves, a full inside and outside detail. Make a difference today. Call Jeff at 641-780-0119 or follow Vanderlinden Detailing on Facebook.
RJ Performance wants to remind you that now is a great time to buy an Indian motorcycle. Use your tax refund for something you will love, or take advantage of great financing offers with payments starting as low as $99 per month. They are also honoring our heroes with greater discounts. Get $1,000 bonus for all active, reserve, National Guard, and retired military personnel, plus active and retired police, firefighters, and volunteer firefighters. Get ready for spring with a new Indian motorcycle today at RJ Performance in Ottumwa. See RJ Performance for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and drive.
Welcome back. It's the Checkered Flag. We are live here from the No Coast Network studios on the north side of Oskaloosa. Another fantastic guest. We're going to shift not only from Eddyville into Knoxville, but from Knoxville into figure eight racing. Keokuk County Expo. Ron Collins is here. Thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about your experience and what your position is with the Keokuk County Expo and the figure eights.
I started out just being a fair board member and kind of got worked into we built the track like 03, and it's kind of went from there. I kind of I'm the dirt man. I kind of keep the track in form. I got a brother-in-law that he pretty much runs the car end of it, but we make it all work out. It's fun for a lot of people.
Oh, a lot of people find what happens over there that not only does Keokuk County Expo have a track there, but there's tracks at Brooklyn, Watcheer, and Barnes City as
Correct.
well, all within very short distance, and the dates are moving around. It's kind of like a nice little circuit
Well,
guys
we
have.
work together, try not to double up our dates. We work so everybody has a date. It's hard to find a rain date.
Right, yeah, because this week the figure eights are going to be at Watcheer.
Correct.
And then, you know, moving on from there, Brooklyn's got a lot of dates. They do some Friday stuff as well. Before we get into that, how did the idea start about of let's throw a figure eight track here in Sigourney, let's have an intersection and see what guys are going to it's popular racing, but it's dangerous racing. So what has been the kind of the recruitment, I should say, of trying to get some of these people from around to come and participate in figure eight racing?
Well, a bunch of boys come to us back in the early 2000s there, then we need another place to race. That's all it was, and there was a lot of interest at that time. Of course, there was a lot of old cars that could be made into figure eight cars. I want to say that it all just worked out that way, and the car numbers have grown, and they've kind of depleted a little bit with the iron prices. Why we lost a lot of the big old cars that went to iron. So it's kind of hard right now getting our car numbers up, and it's kind of expensive for young people to get started. But yes, they get out there, and it's a lot of fun. It's exciting.
All right, so when you're racing with an intersection, I've watched some film on it.
Okay.
You know, some guys are trying to decide, do I want to stop through the intersection and let some cars pass, or try to drive through it? What are some of the cool memories that you have, and how many people come and watch these things, not only at Keokuk County Expo, but this is something that draws a crowd from all over the place right. to your track to watch, see what happens.
Right. Well, the intersection, the driver's door, he is supposed to brake. The other guy's supposed to brake for the driver's door. So the driver's door is off limits. Sometimes it happens. I mean, it doesn't all. They think the other guy's going to give and he doesn't give. Well, at 40 to 50 mile an hour through that intersection, that is pretty much a timed event.
Right.
And it's a split second deal, and you wonder, how did they make it? Well, they do. But it's just the more experience they get, the more gutsy they get, I guess.
The thrill, I can't imagine the thrill of being in a race like that. So plenty of dates are coming up, and we'll touch on those, which are obviously coming up this week. But you talked about the numbers of the participation grows. How important is it to have a good relationship with so many tracks that are within, you know, easy driving distance of each other, that every weekend people have a chance to go and watch them at figure eight racing?
Well, like I said, back when they come to us, they was just wanting another place to race. So that's the way we started all working together, because most of the same cars go to all the tracks. And we all have our own point system, so they're all qualifying for points. So if you miss, why, then you're down the list. So it's keeps them coming to all the tracks that way. And like you say, we trying to perform for the cars come and they put on a show, and we're trying to make entertainment for the community. So it's all kind of works out together.
In a place like Sigourney, when you don't have the basketball or the football teams going during the summer months, not that the softball and baseball teams, they definitely get crowds. I've been to a couple of games over there, but this is a different thing. This is something that the entire community really can go and just have a nice entertainment night. So take us through some of the dates that are coming up. I know what Cheer is this weekend, and I believe Brooklyn is shortly thereafter.
Right. I think Brooklyn's had maybe one race. We elected not to start till June because we have a little trouble with getting help earlier, and maybe the car count is always kind of low in May, so we just elected not to have a May race. We don't start till the 17th of June. Right. So we'll hope everybody's ready to go figure 8 racing June 17th.
Absolutely, and then you guys do get going a little bit more as the season wears on as well.
Our fair comes up then in the 15th of July, so it's really a month later then, and that's our biggie for the year, you might say. And then we have another 2 weeks later than that. Then we have our 2-day on Labor Day weekend. So they have 2 nights of racing. They're qualifying for points yet on the Friday night, and then Saturday night is the points race off. So that they're not qualifying, but we have a regular night of racing also.
So that's a huge weekend. Obviously, the fair is a big time over at the Keokuk County Expo for so many different things, but this is a great piece of the puzzle that you guys have there. And with just a handful of dates of racing, makes it very important for these guys to have good showings over at Keokuk County Expo, so they can get those points and maybe potentially win a points championship over at Keokuk County Expo. Is there anything that you want the people to know before your season gets going over at Keokuk County Expo about the kind of value they get for coming in and enjoying some figure 8 racing over at Keokuk County Expo?
Well, we provide a nice big hill that everybody can sit out and not have to sit on top of each other. There's plenty of room. The kids, it's a kids event. I mean, we try to keep it safe. There's no kids allowed in the pits under 14, so we keep them back on the hill. And there's a lot of games that go on in the hayfield, which is behind the grandstand, that the kids maybe aren't watching all the time. But it's a great place for the kids to come and just kind of spread out and visit with people and watch the races.
That sounds awesome, Ron. We'll have you in as the dates come closer for Keokuk County Expo Figure 8s, kind of touch base on what talk about some of the drivers, maybe some of the different promotions you'll have coming up. Thanks so much for joining us here.
You bet.
And we'll be talking to you again very soon.
Thank you.
That is Ron Collins, Keokuk County Expo Figure 8s, and as mentioned, we'll talk to him later on in the season. We already talked about Knoxville Raceway earlier in the show, but we're going to flip back over to it and talk more on the promotion side of things and what's happening at the track. Kendra Jacobs is going to be on deck right here on the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network.
We're on A Avenue West, where famous daredevil Orville Kennerville has just gone through quality car wash without a car. How was it, Orville?
Oh, the brushes were really soft, and they reached every nook and cranny.
So you like the brushes?
I was just tickled.
How about the wax at Quality Car Wash?
Great. So warm, so protective.
And how do you feel?
I've never felt so clean.
If you think you're clean, just wait till you see your car.
I don't have a car. Driving makes me nervous.
Bring your car to Quality Car Wash at 1101 A Avenue West in Oskaloosa for an unbelievable clean. You'll be tickled, too.
April at Motor and Auto Group in Knoxville means new deals on new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles on the lots. A 2017 Dodge Journey SXT 4-wheel drive is 23% off MSRP and saves you over $5,700. A 2017 Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 is 20% off MSRP and saves you over $1,000 when you purchase. Or look good in a 2017 Dodge Charger SXT all-wheel drive, saving you over $6,900 with 20% off MSRP. The dealer that's easy to deal with and hard to beat. Motor and Auto Group in Knoxville.
Welcome back into the Checkered Flag. We have one more guest for you this evening, and it's none other than Kendra Jacobs from Knoxville Raceway. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so those of you who may not know, you've definitely had plenty of experience talking on television and radio shows about racing, and a very nice resume. I'll let you go ahead and tell your story here, how you got started in racing and how you've become the director of marketing over at Knoxville Raceway.
Well, my dad was a sprint car driver, so I think my first sprint car race I was about 6 weeks old, and he ended up going on the World of Outlaw Tour, so Knoxville became, the #1 stop for us as kids. And I think my first nationals at Knoxville was when I was 6 years old. So I'm not going to give away my age, but I've been going there for a very long time. And after I graduated college, I moved to Charlotte and started working in NASCAR. And NASCAR just kept evolving, and the more the NASCAR guys came in from dirt racing, the more NASCAR kept going back to dirt racing, and there were a lot more connections. And the agency I work with, Spire Sports in Charlotte, began working with Knoxville. And when Knoxville said, hey, we'd like to have someone move out here and do our marketing, I raised my hand faster than anyone could and said, please me, I want to go out there and do that. So that's how I ended up here. And I live out here 6 months a year, and I'm lucky to work at the greatest racetrack in the world every Saturday night.
Okay, so we just talked to Bill McCroskey,
Right.
who, he's going to be talking a lot of the on-track happenings over at Knoxville, helping us out with that. You get to see it from the administration point of view, and you started much like Bill did. It's just, as a kid growing up, watching it, enjoying that kind of experience. But from your seat right now, how has the track evolved over the last, several years of, being, there's a lot more different ways that people can talk about racing, have access to what's happening at Knoxville, whether it's through, watching shows, having national publications come out about it. What do you see from your position currently?
Well, I think the biggest thing is social media has had an effect on all sports, and that affects us in grassroots racing too. It's not just those on the corporate national level. So, and that's twofold. You can look at it and get complaints, and you see what people are angry about, but you also see what you're doing right. So I think you really have to listen to what the fans are saying, and that's something we've really worked hard to do. On the media side, MRN's Wing Nation is great. It took what's going on in the country and elevated it to this national radio show that mainly focuses on NASCAR and puts sprint car racing at the forefront. And I think that was a great move by them to put all of the news in one place. And with the way that technology works now, there's so many podcasts and blogs from every little niche of sprint car racing in the country. And all that does is take the fan base and make us all feel like we're one. And I think that really needed to happen. And now we realize there's so many of us in the country, and we have all these conversations going on and these side notes. And we're getting ready for the 5-Hour Energy Nationals in August, and people are already talking about it on social media. So it's a way to keep the fans going and keep the emotion kind of elevated even when you're not racing or they're not at the track. And on weekends we have pay-per-view now, which when I was a kid, if you weren't at the track, you didn't even know what was going on until you either called the track hotline after it was over. That was the one way to do it. Or you waited till somebody posted something on this dinosaur of a message board, and that's how you got your news. So things have evolved now, and people have it right at their fingertips, and there's good and bad to that, but I choose to look at all the good and the ways that we can build off of that.
It's important for something, even though it's in a rural community, how much attention it gets on a worldwide level because of it's the sprint car capital of the world. So besides the on-track happenings, obviously there's an amazing talent level on a weekly basis in NASCAR, but how is each week different for you guys? Because you're still wanting to try to keep people coming to the track each Saturday, even though for a lot of people who may not be race fans, well, it's just a random early season Saturday. I'll wait until August when the big things come around. But for you guys over the track, every Saturday is a big deal in the promotion of what you guys have coming up. So how do you guys approach each week differently to try to get people to show up and keep that attention span of the nation instead of just a couple of weeks all season long at Knoxville?
Well, one of the rules that we had when I came on board was we want everyone to have fun. This is not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be exhausting. It's supposed to be fun, and we're supposed to enjoy what we're doing. And so are the fans, and they have so many options now for how they can spend a Saturday night. How do we keep them coming back to us? And we have a great program, but sometimes you have to shake that up. And at least once a month, we want a Saturday that's different. So we've started it with this past Saturday. We did Iowa versus Iowa State night, which let fans choose which school is the favorite, and then the money they donated went to charity. We have some nights that are dollar beer nights for the adults, and they seem to enjoy that. We have a Future Stars night coming up where all the kids that are racing go-karts at different tracks in the state can come and sign autographs and be in their uniforms, and it's all for them. And we do a kids candy drop later in the season. During Nationals time, we have concerts and celebrity autograph sessions, and we just try to make where each month there's at least one event that is different from all the others in the month. So that's a reason to say, oh, we've got to go this night. And if we can get them there and they had fun, hopefully they'll come back on a night that's just a regular show. And I use regular lightly because we do have some of the best talent in the world right in our backyard every weekend.
And when this is my first year covering racing, so going to the Southern Iowa Speedway and watching the stock cars and the sport compacts and the modifieds, this is a much different thing. When you go and watch the sprint cars, some of the moves these guys make, the handling is a little bit different. The setup is pretty similar from Knoxville to what we have in Oskaloosa, but the way that the track is maneuvered from the stock cars to the sprint cars, especially with the speed it's happening, changes things quite a bit. It's not hard to attract a race fan to like sprint car racing, but what is that dynamic with all these small kind of stock car type tracks that are a half mile or smaller, and what you guys have going on a lot on the same nights with the sprint cars you guys have every single Saturday night?
Well, I think like what you just mentioned, the sheer speed. I don't think people are necessarily prepared for that if it's their first night, and that just gets your heart pounding right away. Our challenge is to convey what all the races are. What is a heat race, and what does that mean for the B main, and what does that mean for the A main? And if you can get them to understand that, usually they catch on pretty quickly, and they enjoy being there. The other key is to make them or help them identify with a driver. How can you say this guy has this personality and this girl is this, and they start to have a driver they cheer for. And when you have someone you're pulling for, you identify with it, now you're emotionally invested. If we can make all that happen, and then the people they're sitting around start to become like family, and those are the people they quote unquote hang out with every Saturday, they're going to keep coming back. So it goes beyond the racing itself and the environment and the atmosphere and these personalities. If you can get all of that to work together, you're going to build a strong fan base, and people are going to keep coming back.
Well, that means you have to have a strong understanding of what the drivers are and what personalities they do to promote those as well. You see NASCAR, the heyday NASCAR in the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were the Richard Pettys and the Dale Earnhardts and the Bill Elliots, and guys that people could easily identify with and wanted to see them do well every week. What are some of the more popular drivers that you see now, because there's a lot of younger people kind of getting into the sport right now?
Yeah, well, one of our most popular drivers at Knoxville is McKenna Hassey. McKenna's our female driver. She just bumped up to the 360 class. Of course, they like her because she's a female. And they also like her because she's good, and she is fantastic with the kids. And her line every Saturday night for autographs is definitely the longest. On the 410 side, Brian Brown is fantastic. Brian's been racing at Knoxville for quite a while now. He just won again on Saturday night, and I think he's tied for 7th in our all-time win list. His uncle is Danny Lasowski, so a lot of fans identify with Danny, who's our all-time winningest driver at the track, and they remember this little kid that used to run around with him, and now he's winning races every weekend. So he's another really popular driver. And on the 305 side, we have a third-generation driver, Ryan Levitt. His grandfather, Eddie, won the actual Knoxville Nationals in the early days of that event. And so when he came on board as this rookie and won in his second race out, that was a fan favorite. People went nuts. And it kind of gave me goosebumps to see this young kid come into Victory Lane, and the crowd was just going crazy because they know, like, this is in that kid's blood, and he's, keeping that family history going.
So it's not for people that really like the NASCAR scene and national stock car racing. It's a lot of the same thing. Chase Elliott, really popular. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is very popular. The bloodlines make people very popular. Now, winning, I think, also helps in success. And you want, as the marketing person at a track, easiest people to market are the ones that are always going to Victory Lane. So who are some other drivers that have been to Victory Lane a little bit more recently who are just, maybe without McKenna being in there or Mr. Levitt, some younger drivers that you think that you're going to be seeing in Victory Lane an awful lot who will add their name to that list of, fan favorites after people see them continued success?
Yep, I think Christian Bowman is going to be someone we see with a lot of success. He also jumped up to the 360 class this year, won our 305 championship last year. On the 410 side, it's this toughest battle, it seems to be between Brian Brown and Ian Madsen, both who are really, you hate to use the word veteran because they take offense to that, but they're veterans of the sport, and we need some of these young kids to get up there and battle with them. Austin McCarl has potential. He's a second-generation driver, actually third-generation driver, Terry's son, who he finished third Saturday night, and he's a younger one that I think can go up there and battle with them. And in our 305 class, we have 11 rookies on opening night. So these are all kids that came from kart racing and are giving it a try, and it's scary to get out of that track the first time and see how big it is, and like you said, the sheer speed of maneuvering those cars on that track. And I commend all of those boys and girls for getting out there and giving it a try.
You know, we saw on our footage, but as we were kind of unpacking it, some very interesting wrecks as well, which, as dangerous as it is, these drivers know what they're signing up for. But at the same time, a lot of these people who are watching the races, find that to be one of the more exciting parts of the race. So with that kind of danger that's involved in sprint car action, how do you as a promoter properly harness that and let everybody know that's not the point of the sport, but right. With the safety of the cars these days, there's a lot of excitement going on, whether it's a last lap pass or a slider like Bill was explaining, or somebody trying to make a pass and not quite making it and ended up having a visually spectacular wreck.
Well, I think you kind of nailed it when you said the safety of these cars. I think that fans don't get excited about the wreck itself. I think they get excited when someone walks away from the wreck. So there is this element of danger, and we've seen our fair share of drivers getting hurt, which none of us like. And when you're really, really into the sport, those wrecks are never something exciting. But when that driver climbs out and walks away, that's when you breathe a sigh of relief and think, wow, that was amazing. So I think the real excitement is these guys are superheroes, and they do something that I hope I never do in my life, and they do it and walk away, and they're ready to get right back in the car again next week. And to me, that's really impressive, and I think that's the key takeaway is no one really likes the wreck. They like that a wreck can happen, and the majority of the time the driver walks away like nothing ever happened. Right.
It's visually spectacular, and they are a breed of their own and wanting to be part of that. So we'll talk to you a couple of times throughout the season, have you part of our show. Of course, this is a new show with the television aspect of it as well, and I'm just really interested to see, especially on these bigger weekends that you guys have.
Yeah, the World of Outlaws are coming up. You've got to come to that weekend. Yeah. Or the non-wing sprint cars, if you want to see crazy maneuvering.
Yeah, now that was
that
was the one I was going to ask you about. When can people come and see the non-wing? Because even though structurally they're pretty similar when you get on the inside of them, on the outside they look very different, and the way that they maneuver around the car, very, very interesting stuff. Yeah, so what you saw with the winged sprint cars is that wing actually keeps the car down on the track more. So when these cars come, they just take that wing off, and they look to be sideways the entire time around the track. It's a completely different visual race. So they're at the track on June 3rd. It's going to be an amazing weekend. That's also the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Induction Day. So really big weekend for us. It's the first time non-wing cars have been back in 6 years. So hoping everyone comes out and support it so we can keep having them come back. And I really think when you talk about crazy racing, what you see that night is going to just shock you by the nerve that those guys have. Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to be able to see those kind of things, and we can't wait to get that on video as well. But Kendra, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking to you again very soon. Great, I hope so. All right, that is Kendra Jacobs, Knoxville Raceway, and we are going to take one final break, come back, wrap things up for an amazing edition of the Checkered Flag right here on the No Coast Network.
And our dad is Boomer! You know the guy that owns Vanderbeek Truck Accessories. If you're in need of truck or SUV accessories, come see our dad. He offers what you need to be riding in style. He'll make your truck cool, and he'll make you smile. Call 628 or stop on the east side of Pella on Oskaloosa Street. Tell Dad the kids sent you.
Call Terry Schroeder Alignment and Towing in Sigourney for your alignment and towing needs at 622-2269 or 641-660-5515. They feature 24-hour towing. You can trust Schroeder's experience with your towing needs. DOT license and insured. All insurance companies welcomed. For alignment, Terry Schroeder uses the Hunter Alignment System to get your vehicle back on the road in no time. Terry Schroeder Alignment and Towing, 413 West Clark in Sigourney.
One final time here on the Checkered Flag here at the No Coast Network Studios. I'd like to thank all of our guests for coming in. Our next racing action is going to be tomorrow, weather permitting. The Southern Iowa Speedway pre-race show will start at 6 p.m. on 104.9 FM KBOE. The races will start at 7:15, so if the races happen, be sure to check it out with Jeremy Fox on the call as well. Be sure to check out our website for all action racing on KBOEradio.com. For everybody at the No Coast Network, this is Emery Stunger signing off. You've been watching the Checkered Flag right here on NCN.
This has been the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. The Checkered Flag has been presented by Danny's Auto Supply, Oskaloosa Quality Car Wash, Sigourney Body Shop, Vital Ministries, RJ Performance, Motor and Auto Group of Knoxville, Mahaska, Vanderbeek Truck Accessories, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, Schroeder Towing and Alignment, and Vanderlinden Detailing. This has been the Checkered Flag on 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. This has been a presentation of No Coast Network.